time. The plaintiff's job is to prove that they have made a mistake, so the burden of proof falls to the plaintiff. I'm gonna let you, or we'll start with your representative, whatever you want. Tell me why you think they made a mistake. Once we're done with that, I'll let the town, go along that as
Excuse me.
well.
As I recall, there is no recording of these hearings.
Well,
Actually, there is, the government has no expectation of privacy. There is, for example, when hearings are not recorded, typically it's to protect the victim or it's to protect the defendant. But in this case, so the government has no expectation whether it's a hearing officer or an assessor. This is about transparency and accountability.
okay.
And it's important. It's important.
Well, okay, I will address this in two steps here. First off, if you were a news organization, you would fill out a form to record, okay?
It's a First Amendment right. Forms are not necessary. Believe me, it's true.
I'm just telling you what the
It's a First Amendment right. So that would be a policy. Policies are below the Constitution.
The other half of that is, there's nothing that says, I'm just saying that I've asked the county about this because I was a little concerned about it. They said that there's no rules that I have to. There has to be a reason why you believe that this is necessary.
Because there is a lack of transparency and accountability in this township. They routinely evade my FOIL requests. They can routinely delay my request. The Board of Assessment Review is not writing proper decisions. They're in violation of New York state law. The list goes on. I'll be getting into it, but there's actually 4 violations of New York state law in this one case alone. And as you know, every single case that you and I have had here, I have never received a full FOIL response. Never. It's a battle every single time. So it's a matter of transparency.
Well, it's not an issue of transparency. It's an issue of the real property tax law says that these things are not recorded. There are no transcripts that are kept on this one.
Show me that. Show me the section of law. New York state law is below the Constitution. It's a First Amendment right. And a judge recently said, and I can show you the case, the judge says he's all in favor of transparency and accountability, and they do these things on Zoom conferences, and the judge says there's 200 people on the Zoom conference. What seems to be the problem? He says, do it. And not only that, they asked him if they could live stream it. He says, why not? They live streamed the hearing and we're not asking to do that. And there was 5,000 people in that stream. Judge had no problem with it because the judge was above board. And then the state's attorney in that particular case dismissed the case because they didn't want to be made fools of, because their case was absolutely ridiculous. And this case is ridiculous. And of course, if I would kind of feel the same way if I was making a bad case. But if I had a proper case, and we have a proper case, we are being completely above board. And this is a public matter. We want everybody to know that we are 100% above board. There's appearances of impropriety in this township because when they get that response from Barr, and they just check the box. It says the assessor's appraisal is superior to that of the taxpayer. I foiled that appraisal. I got nothing but crickets, nothing. But there was no appraisal, and so when a property owner gets a decision that just says checkbox insufficient information after they provided volumes of information, they can only conclude that there's a fix on, that there's some sort of impropriety going on. This is and so we're trying to rectify it. What we want is exactly what it is to get the figure right. Nothing higher, nothing lower. That's it. And so I think that if this thing is recorded, everybody will behave better. We've had hearings here that have gotten very contentious.
Well, okay.
If everybody knows they're being recorded, they'll behave properly.
I have 2 quick questions. So once you record this, what are you going to do with it?
What am I going to do with it?
I mean, I do not want it cannot be posted on the internet. That's the general. That's a given. I can't do it.
You have no choice but to do it. It would be a violation of my First Amendment right. This is a public place.
This is not a Supreme Court. He's not here to go and rule on
No.
constitutionalities.
The only thing I got from the Sky Hearing Department was and I'll read this to you, is.
Pat, what do you have to hide? What do you have to hide?
I don't have anything to hide.
What do you have to hide, Ray? I mean, what's going on here?
If you'll excuse me, I'm gonna go grab the real property tax law.
I don't have anything to hide, okay? But it's just as simple, and I have no problem with that. It's just, if this, I have no way of knowing it'll be cut or taped or re-edited after it leaves this room, and that's my problem. I have no problem with going on, if I'm.
Okay, we won't edit a thing.
Yeah, I'm just saying, that's where they came down on the issue, was the fact that once it's taped, it'd be cut and spliced.
Well, we won't splice it or cut it.
Well,
You have.
I'm
you
just
have our
saying
word.
that's what the court was concerned about.
Well, then why did this court that I'm referring to? It's Illinois versus Reyes. Why did they not have a problem with that?
I don't know, I'm not judge and I'm not that officer, so,
Mm-hmm.
Why did it not rain? Why did the sun is not up today, and why is it raining,
I don't
There's
know.
things I don't control.
Yeah. Well,
I'm just
transparency.
saying is that the New York State people seem to be okay, but the concern is, A, they usually want it to be formally requested so that everybody's aware of it, and B, that they want to be sure that if it goes on the internet, it's not manipulated,
Well, I won't manipulate it. You have my word.
The trouble is, once it leaves the room, I have no control over it.
Well,
That's the
you
trouble.
have my word.
What am I gonna do, shoot you if you lie?
Well, what would anybody do anything? But I just recorded that you have my word that it will not go on the internet, or that it will go on the internet, but that it will not be altered in any way, shape, or form.
So you're gonna put this on the internet?
I most certainly will. Most certainly will. That's the whole idea, is to educate people, because we've been here for 4 years, and every year we have problems, and I'm trying to stop those problems so we get on the same page. Because in this case, we shouldn't even be here if he had done his job properly.
Well, you shouldn't be here because you've also got a commercial enterprise running here too.
Who does?
He does. Do you have a dog boarding kennel in the back there?
I have a small boarding
Well,
facility.
we're gonna get into
We're
that.
gonna get into that.
We're gonna get into that. I mean, your reports all say this thing's COM 1. I don't know why you used all residential ones as comps to a commercial property, but
So basically, I came to the town, I used to have a,
I just wanna see what he's got to say here, and then I pretty much go the other way on this, but,
Well, I could read you the determination that's not a precedent, which Mr. Franklin keeps referring back to. Precedents.
transparency and accountability. I think it's important. And he should come up with an explanation why we shouldn't. Okay, you're already concerned about the thing being edited.
I told you what my concern is.
Right.
But that's.
Why would he not
that's
want
my-
to, have the public be educated about how this process works?
This-
I'm not here to educate the public, I'm here to represent the town in a hearing.
Okay, so
And in
why,
accordance with the real property tax law.
right, so what is your argument that we should not be recording this?
My argument is that the law says it doesn't get recorded.
Okay, show us it.
That's fine, I'm working on it.
And again, Constitution, state law, local law, policy. That's how it goes. It's a First Amendment. This is a public space. The
Who
government
is
has, it
videotaping at First Amendment?
is. It most certainly is. Have
I'm
you
not-
seen,
I'm not denying your right to free speech with or without. the
no,
recording.
free speech includes the right to videotape in public, anywhere.
With-
And-
Within the limits of the law.
with-
Right, so what are the limits that you're saying we're outside of?
Again, like I said, if this was something else like a TV station or some courtroom, you would put a formal request in. That's the only difference, that's, you know, which, you know, is what they sent me, but, you know.
Right, but again.
And I'm just, you know, I'm not trying, I'm just saying it says, application for audio and visual coverage, that's what they sent me.
Sure.
Okay.
And again, the judge says is that the reason that they don't allow recording in some cases is to protect a victim or the defendant. The government has no expectation of privacy. This isn't here to protect the the assessor or the town. Openness is better. If everybody's more open, the government's more open, everybody's better.
I think just go ahead and let it go. Okay, let's do it.
Ray, I'm gonna have to object to it.
Okay, I duly noted, all right, at this point, we have his word that he's not gonna alter it, which is all I asked for. And the ruling from the court was that, you know, we could proceed if there was reason for it. He seems to think there's reason for it. I'm not gonna disagree with that. I don't have a ruling that says that he can't do it. I mean, that's you know, this should normally be a formal request, but I think that would, unless you can, I'm not aware of that rule. That's my problem.
It's in here.
I'll give you another minute to look for it.
Well, again, I'm not prepared for it, obviously, but
Yeah.
Had I known he was gonna come in and record, I would have been prepared for it.
Okay.
One of the issues I've had, Ray, is that the bar gives people 5 minutes to make these arguments. It's absolutely absurd. How can you do this in 5 minutes?
Well, on the other hand, I've had people talk to me about statistics for 45 minutes before they got to a fact. So, you know, don't give me a 5-minute rule, I mean.
But don't you think 15 minutes would be more reasonable?
No, because half the people don't have a right to be there, because all they're complaining about is they don't want to pay taxes because they're too damn cheap to pay their own fair share.
Well, Ray, I'll let you know that this year I had about 10 people call me, and I only had 3 cases. He settled 2 of them.
I got
And the other 7, 2 of them were severely underassessed.
Yeah.
I told him you might want to lay low.
Yeah.
And the other 5 were about right. And so that saved 7 people from going to bar.
I don't disagree with what you're saying. I'm just saying, I think this is my 8th hearing, because I do Oswego County, and they're ahead of Onondaga County. And I got a guy who bought a house for $183,000 2 years ago, bought the lot next door for $45,000, knocked on the door. They reassessed him at $160, and he thinks he's overassessed at $190. I'm like,
Yeah.
why are you wasting everybody's time? And then I got this engineer who comes in and wastes 15 minutes talking to me about land that's landlocked that isn't even got a house on it.
Yeah.
But everybody's got a complaint about it. So, whatever, so.
Well, that's because a lot of them aren't familiar with the process. So
It
if we
is
educate them
part
about
of
the process,
is,
maybe.
and part of it is that, you know, like how much, there is amount of time that you need
Sure.
to do with it.
Okay, can I proceed?
Huh? Yeah, go ahead, proceed, and we're gonna go from there.
Okay. And I'm gonna have some prepared information, and Mr. Flynn will have some input.
Yeah, I think, I just wanna make one thing. You basically are saying right now you're assessed at 270 and you're trying to get to 180. Is that-
Correct.
Am I reading this correct? Okay.
Correct. He
Thank
was
you.
120 the previous year. Assessor has more than 14,000 properties to value. He collects the data as best he can and plugs the data into a program and generates results and reports. It's an enormous task, and there are bound to be errors. So when erroneous data is plugged in, you get erroneous data out. That is the case here. In particular, the data input on condition is way off, and the property appears to have been selectively assessed. it is so because I said so is not a proper valuation method. If I'm wrong about that, I'm hoping the assessor will explain where he got the condition from and exactly how he calculated this assessment. Number one, page 4 of the RPTL 730A designates me. I am the legal representative for the taxpayer per New York state law. The assessor failed to recognize that legal status, which is why we are here today. Pat and I, both being valuation experts, should be able to review the facts. It's his job, but my client was denied the opportunity, as is his legal right, to have a professional review his data with the assessor per RPTL 730A. The purpose of SCAR is to arbitrate in case the parties can't agree on the facts. Thus far, the assessor has refused to review those facts. Number 2, incomplete and delayed FOIL. FOIL compliance is New York state law. Every year, every case, I have to battle to get what I am entitled to by law, so we can compare apples and apples. I have, let's see, my glasses aren't so good. Every year, every case I have to battle to get what it is I'm entitled to by law, so we can compare apples and apples. I have yet to receive a complete FOIL answer from this assessor. Therefore, we always have issues comparing apples and apples for whatever reason. There is no discovery in bar, but a SCAR hearing officer should take note when state law is violated, evaded, or delayed. In this case, there was no comparable assessment report, no tables, incomplete bar records. Number 3, decision by bar did not meet New York state reporting requirements, much the same way if a SCAR hearing officer provided no details in the decision. If appealed, the court would rule it a non-decision and return it, or have it reheard by another hearing officer. A decision without a decision is not a decision. Number 4, selective assessment. In the 4 years we have had cases, about half the cases were selective assessment welcome stranger violations. Selective assessment welcome stranger is a violation of New York state law, yet it happens routinely in this town. That is 4 violations of New York state law, and those violations appear to be not only routine in this town, they appear systemic. So I wanted to get that out of the way. So now we'll get to the figures. Per the data the assessor did provide, condition rating is incorrect.
Can I stop you for a minute? So you agree he did give the information?
He gave some information,
Okay.
but I never got the comparable assessment report. And I've asked repeatedly for tables. How much is a half a bathroom? How much is a full bath? How much is a bedroom? How much is a second kitchen? If I don't have that, how are we supposed to calculate these things quantitatively? And he's not the only one. None of them want to provide that information, because if they did, then we could mathematically calculate this. But they don't provide it because they don't want to provide it, because it's so, because I said so is their preferred method of valuation, but it is not a proper valuation method. This should be done quantitatively, and it's not. Could you pull out the inspection? Actually, I have a color copy.
Yeah, you got a color.
This was done by Mr. Flynn himself. So
This is so I've gone through the school for building inspector. I've taken the state test, and basically I'm just showing you what a building inspector would look at and evaluate my house. It's from 19, if you realize that the property is an old farmhouse. It was built 152 years ago. Has a lot of defects in it. There's foundation defects, there's electrical upgrades that roofing needs to be repaired. So if you look at it, if I put that on the market, that's what I'm gonna get back.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I cut it back because it was so
All right,
large.
since you've given me this, I gotta stop you for a minute, okay? Quick question. When did you buy the property?
In 1988,
So you've had this property for a while?
yeah.
Okay.
yeah, for $69,000 he paid for it.
No, all right, I'm just trying to say, it's not like something you bought 2 years ago.
No,
the town
no,
welcomed you to
no,
the
and-
neighborhood. That's what
yeah.
I'm trying to say. So
So-
there's no welcome to the neighborhood clause here, am I
No.
correct, Mr. Frank?
No, it's just that it seems as though the figure was In other words,
Right.
the property was looked at
I'm
and
just
kind of.
saying is he's had the house for multiple years.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
okay, that's fine, go ahead, continue.
Yeah, so in other words, I don't expect you to treat that as if it's an independent home inspection. But what I like you to do is just look at the pictures and take into consideration. And what I'm trying to find is I've got the 3 pages that come by, that make up the page 103 through 105 of the New York State Assessor's Manual. Gives you the grades of, oh, here it is, right here. Okay, so he has this condition as normal. So the definition of normal is this indicates that the exterior shows only minor signs of deterioration caused by normal wear and tear. The residence is usable and reflects an ordinary standard of maintenance. Exterior needs only patch and paint to look new. Okay, so, let me see here. Okay, so my view is that the condition is more like between poor and fair. So if you look at those photos, I think that you could agree. I mean, look at the foundation images, and frankly, they're quite concerning. Fair. This indicates that the exterior shows definite signs of deferred maintenance. The functional utility of the exterior components are somewhat diminished, but the house is usable as is. Shingles may be curled but in place. Siding may be warped and needed painting, but is firmly in place. Foundation may be in need of pointing up. It could be characterized as needing work. New paint, side roofing, upgrade windows. Clutter or uncleanliness does not always indicate actual deterioration of the exterior building components. So then below that is poor. And, poor could be, I'm not suggesting that it's poor, but I think that it might be, it's on the very low side of fair, and it certainly isn't normal. And we'll get into the comparable, where all the other properties are, versus condition later. So we'll get into that. But I think that that inspection, the photos in the inspection, will give you a very good idea of where the house is at. The amount. So in other words, as a realtor, could you imagine getting an offer on that and then they order the home inspection? It would be a nightmare.
I just sold one that looks worse than this.
So,
It is, from a realtor, you know that it's problematic.
yeah, and if I were to put that on the market, obviously I'm gonna have to upgrade the electrical. I've gotta do a lot of mechanical work, right? So at this point, I don't have the money to do that. So I'm just kinda making sure that like right now, the lower roof is leaking. So I gotta do something. That's why you see the tar patches on the roof. The upstairs kitchen, when I went to run the water, I had leaks in the plumbing. So right now I don't use it upstairs kitchen because for one thing, years ago it used to be, when I bought it was a 2-family, but then I went to the town and had it converted to a 1-family. So they came through and inspected the property and said, okay, 1-family. I basically use it as 1-family now. I have the kitchen upstairs. I left all the cabinets, but that's all that's up there. There's no refrigerator, stove, or anything like that. You can see that in the picture.
Yeah. So that's the house.
Yep.
But there's also some outbuildings. So we're going to hand that to him.
So.
And hand this to him too as well.
Sorry.
That's all right.
The blue building is the original garage that came with the property. And the gray, or the tan building is an outbuilding storage building that I had installed. There's the inspection. So that was done back in 20.
Right, which is included in last year's assessment. So that's
Yeah.
there's no capital improvements between last year and this year.
Yeah, it was absolutely, if anything, with the condition of the house and not being able to get stuff repaired, I'm looking at, condition is, if anything, a little less. On the
So
house side.
what you have there,
What's the square footage of your home?
2078 is his house.
How much?
2078.
2078?
793 is the upstairs portion, and then the, whatever the difference is what the downstairs. So what you have here is you have 2 building permits. One is for the little addition on the smaller building, and it was $2,200 on the building permit. He's got the invoices and he's got the checks. The other one is a pole barn he had built, and he has a building permit there for $17,000, and we have the checks and everything for that.
So you got about 40,000 in upgraded.
Well, there's 20,000 in costs there,
And then probably, you know, with the addition, I'm probably 35, I think I totaled it up
Well, I'm just
after.
running the numbers, see what that's somewhere around.
Well, in the building permit, there's just under 20,000.
Yeah, so, yeah, you're looking.
But he
at
did some
20.
work himself.
Yeah, I did the addition strictly by myself. So my point is that really, I mean, yeah, there is additions back there. So he went from 120 to 180 after these additions, these permits. And so I'm thinking $30,000 increase in the value of the property. I offered to go to 150 for the value with those, and I got back last year, no, 180, so I said, okay, 180. This year, we went from 180 to 270, that's 50% increase in property value in 1 year. And I asked for the reason for that, I don't have nothing.
Yeah, so again, the capital improvements there were done previous years.
That's where
So that was taken into consideration to last year's 180 assessment. Okay,
Right.
so let me carry on here. Okay, so building permit indicates cost of improvements as consistent with our argument as they were executed accompanied by proper building permit. The assessor's cost report indicates that barn at being $110,000. You know, it's just way off. Home inspection report indicates true condition. In 2020, assessment was $120,000. In 2021, the assessment was raised 50% to $180,000, which included those improvements. The assessment, so that was an increase of, what do we got here? 50%, $60,000. The 22 was raised 50% again, from 180 to 270 with no capital improvements. Assessor income approach simply is, the assessor provided an income approach, which is, you know, because they have some dogs there. So he's gonna say it's a commercial property. They have some dogs that they board up or whatever. And so, you know, if they, you know, what their income for that is, you know, if the house were, if they were 5 times bigger or half the size, you know, would the income make any difference? Is that, you know, it doesn't, that approach does not make sense here. If it were a medical building with 5 parties, that somebody, in other words, you weren't using the building yourself, you were renting it to people, their income would be relevant to an income valuation. But this is not. It's a residence, and they do a few dogs. You know,
Which of these buildings is used for the dogs?
The blue building, the front.
And,
yeah, the front one.
All right.
you know, so suggest
Are you breeding
to
dogs? or
No,
are you-
all we do, so I'll give you the history of it.
Yeah.
We used to have a dog daycare boarding facility out in Chittenango, out on Route 5. We had it for 3 years. The COVID kicked in, and then obviously our clientele, everybody stayed home. No one brought their dogs anymore. The landlord asked to sign 3 more year lease. We said, no, we can't afford it. We came here to the town, asked for a special permit. We went through all the process to get a special permit. We did. The town said you can have as many as 10 dogs, boarding only, no daycare. So we do not have a daycare anymore. We only board 10 dogs max. It's more or less a seasonal thing. Summer, when everybody's on vacation, maybe during Thanksgiving and Christmas. Other than that, January through March, we're pretty much closed. I've got my tax returns from that business, and after expenses last year, it's right here, we brought in literally $2,800 profit. It's right here. So, it's not a big facility. It's, like I said, all it is a spot to have the dogs walk around. The local people in Manoa, Kirkville, those areas, they're basically using it for boarding facility. Pretty low key. We don't do any TV advertisements or anything like that. We don't have a sign out front. All it is we have a small sign at the door. And it's basically a way for my girlfriend to have some income, because right now she's getting older and she can't do the job that she's doing now full time. So Income wise, yeah, we make a little bit of income on the boarding.
But if you use that income,
when I
What's
go-
in the brown building?
That's just storage. I put my
That's
car
just-
in there,
that's just
motorcycle, lawnmower, stuff like that. Because I used to have it in the blue building and, I can't put it all, right? So I had to have a place to put all that stuff. So I had that building set so I could at least put my car, lawnmower and motorcycle
All right,
stuff.
so that's what the building's on, so.
yeah, and this kind of use is very common for this particular area. There's a bunch of neighbors that do similar things.
Yeah, and they're all basically still residential, one families.
Yeah, it's Kirkville Road. You're
yeah.
probably familiar with that area.
Right, so, and I have a list, I went through and, you know, obviously drove around, I drive around the neighbors, I can see what people are doing. Guy across the street has a construction company, see flatbeds come there all the time. I have a picture of a flatbed sitting out front of my house. He has, signs out front, help wanted, so obviously he's got he's got employees.
He's a commercial building.
He's got a big commercial building out back, still.
Okay.
Well, there's like a jewelry store that's in a
All right,
residential,
well,
there's
so
an apple
what does
orchard.
that have to do with your?
Because my property got converted to a converted residence.
Yeah, so he has it in the assessment as COM 1, which is ridiculous. And the fact that he's using 5 residential ones as comparables kind of negates the fact
So
that
you're
this thing's
saying
commercial.
it should be assessed as commercial property?
Residential one.
Residential one.
Residential one. In other words, what he used for comps was a house with
No,
an
what do you
outdoor.
wanna use for comps?
We'll just use the comps that he used. It's fine with me. His comps support our position.
Okay.
So, but the bottom line is, even if he did use an income approach, the figures that he's giving you would make our assessment come out and ask him what we're asking for in this hearing.
Okay.
So, we would rather take the income approach because our assessment would be like 60 grand, you know? But,
So where else are we on this property now for where you're coming up with the price?
yeah, let me just finish my thing. I'm almost done. Let's see. So the cost approach calculates the value of a non-used kitchen. He puts it in at $22,000. There is no, it's just the second level. It used to be a 2-family house. It's no longer. They don't use it.
I use it as a bedroom upstairs.
It's a bedroom. It's $22,000 for a non-kitchen. Cost calculated a pole barn costing $17,000 to build at $110,000, charging $7,400 and $31 for architectural fees. There's no architect on a pole barn. The boilerplate data calculated from arbitrary inaccurate figures generates inaccurate results. The inventory assessor is put at 2,078 square feet. The apartment is second floor. We've been through that. So there is no apartment that he's talking about. And in the assessor's records, he has the apartment at 2,078 square feet. That's the size of the entire house. There is no apartment. The classification the assessor has this as a COM 1 as a kennel vet. It's not a kennel vet. It's just they have some dogs, which would be like suggesting that you would do an income valuation on my house because I do real estate out of my house. It's just they have some dogs, you know, with almost no income. It is their home, and they have a home business just like the majority of the country does. It's not a veterinary clinic. It's not a kennel. It's their home.
You're not running an office out of the house, are you?
No, I basically,
No, all right, you just, so,
Yeah.
just for the purposes of, for taxes, you're not saying I'm taking 10% of the value of the house off for commercial, from my office? Okay, just checking.
Okay, so all we have left is the comps. And so the first one is on, is also on Kirkville Road. And it's sold for $235,000, and yet it's assessed for $139,900. So that's an unequal argument, okay? So if, you know, and, but also the condition relative to that property is off.
On comp 1,
Yeah,
which is 8167 Kirkville Road, the same street.
yeah, it's sold in 2020 for $235,000.
Right,
And yet the
okay.
assessment rate now is at $139,900.
Okay.
So that's a very significant unequal argument in our favor here. And also, that house is in far superior condition to this one. Now, granted, it doesn't have the outbuildings, but what we're suggesting to you is our outbuildings, there just wasn't a lot of cost in those outbuildings. Anybody can build an outbuilding in a matter of a weekend or two. I had a buddy of mine built one about this size for $2,500 used off of Craigslist. You know, it's just a pole barn. Okay, so the condition of the house is far superior, but it doesn't have the pole barn. The second one is on Green Lakes Road. Now that's a very different location, but that sold for $250, and the condition is just far superior. The Comp 3 is sold for $169. The assessor, pinned the purchase price as the assessment, that's selective assessment. But it's actually in pretty, that's an amazing property for $169. I'd buy that. And let's see, then the one on, also on Kirkville Road, the next one sold for $124. And it's currently assessed at $121. Again, he pinned the purchase price. The assessment, that's selective. It's illegal. And then the fifth comp is actually in the village of Fayetteville, $159.9. This place is really nice, but the barn is much smaller, but it's a beautiful place. Sold for $159.9. I have no idea why that only sold for $159.9. It's really nice. It's a selective assessment. He pinned his purchase price again, and the location is very different, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful little home. I mean, it's just night and day difference. So the main argument is the barns aren't worth what it is that he's suggesting. $110,000 is ludicrous, and the condition, as you can see from the pictures, is just perfectly obvious that it does not meet the condition grade that he had suggested.
All right. I'm gonna go to the town in a minute, but I just wanna confirm something. You've got a 2,078 square foot home.
Yes.
You've got a commercial use garage converted over for 10 dogs daycare. That's in the back here.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's
Something like
it's
that.
basically the garage.
Yeah, it was an old garage
Yeah.
back before you built the addition. Then you have a pole barn that you've added that's, I didn't see, that's
This side.
24 by 48.
Yeah.
It's a 4-car.
And all those were included in last year's
I'm
assessment.
not arguing that, I just wanna know what I'm talking about for property,
Right.
okay?
Yep.
Just wanna confirm what we're talking about, okay? I just need to know what I'm dealing with for the house.
Yep.
All right.
And this is what I created for the initial hearing, the first one.
Okay,
And the check marks there are the ones that have commercial business coming out of them. And then you'll see
So are
that.
you, I'm getting, do you wanna be assessed as commercial, or you wanna be
No, I
assessed as
figured
residential, or?
the
you
thing
wanna
is,
be
when I go to
assessed as
sell it,
mixed
it's
use?
only gonna be a single family.
Right. So you,
It's all I could be.
that's right.
Yeah,
So-
it's not a single purpose type of property. If you were to sell it, it would
You're
probably
right.
be a
It's
car
like
enthusiast.
an above ground pool, you can take it out.
Yeah,
Right.
Okay.
basically, yeah, cause there's nothing that was done to the garage.
No,
that
I'm
has
just trying
be-
to,
yeah.
I just wanna understand what the whole pie is.
Yeah, cause like a kennel, a friend of mine has a kennel out on Route 5. He actually has runs built into the building, right?
Okay.
Concrete and the whole night, fencing and all that.
Well,
All
that's-
we did was throw some crates on the ground.
Okay.
Yeah, Ray, as far as barns are concerned, I have quite a bit of experience in selling barns. I worked for Sotheby's in Saratoga Springs. We sold equestrian properties all the time. People don't buy equestrian properties. They build them, because you can just call Morton and they'll put in a barn in a matter of a couple, weeks, and it's done. And they get, and these horses are all different. You have to have the specific barn for the specific horse. So when they go to resell it, there's no value in it. I mean, and they get absolutely wiped out on it. So yeah, somebody who's a car enthusiast might like his barn. And so it does add value, but it kind of is diminished. You know what I mean?
What's the town's half side of the story? Please.
Well, first off, just to address one of the concerns of Mr. Franklin, he said he didn't get the appraisal. You did get this. You did-
That's
you-
not an appraisal, that's a
you-
report.
Well, This is what we call in the assessment profession an appraisal. This is it, whether you like it or not. You also said that you did not receive the minutes from the Board of Assessment Review. You most certainly did. That was in the packet. It was resent to you even after the fact. And so far as selective assessment is concerned,
There's no vote.
I'm
sorry, I stepped out of line there. Sorry.
As far as
Minutes.
the term being kicked around, selective assessment, there is no selective assessment based on New York State's Office of Real Property Tax Services and their analysis of my 2022 roll. They made it very clear that it's not selective assessment going on here. There were also some comments made about unequal assessment. Well, unequal assessment is something that deals with towns that are at fractional assessment, not at the town of Manlius, where we are at full market value. And Mr. Flynn, just to go and address one of your concerns, you said, if I were to sell this, it would sell as a residence. That's future potential use. We're not looking at future use. That's something that the real estate market would call highest and best use. By law, I've got to look at the current use, and the current use right now has a house, and it also has the boarding kennel in the back there. So that's what you're getting assessed on.
Well, I guess,
Having said that, there is a provision, if you read the petition, it makes reference to this being a residential property. You're attesting that it's a 1, 2, or 3 family owner-occupied residence. There's some very strong concerns in terms of the commercial enterprise that comes into play, and the fact that you're boarding it, the fact that you've got a tax return for it. It all and by the way, you've also got I've got the permits as well that comes into play. The applications that you went to for the Board of Assessment, or I'm sorry, for the approval. And I'm just going to pass that off to you. So with respect to a commercial property in the small claims assessment review process, I handed, in fact, I'll throw this your way as well. There's a letter of concern there, and it deals with, there's an opinion of counsel that you cannot take the commercial side of the property and bring it into the small claims assessment review. But you can focus on the residential portion of the property. You can focus on the value of the house. Now, Mr. Franklin sat here and he read off something from volume 6, the assessor's manual. I actually sat on the committee that wrote that book. So I know what the definitions are and know how it applies to this particular property. So having said that, the property is in normal condition. Yes, there are deficiencies for it, and that's by nature, that's part of the definition of what normal condition is. It's not a house that's ready to fall down on itself. So having said that, the reason for those comps is that I'm dealing with the issue of strictly the house right now. And the comps that come out, and Mr. Franklin rightly admits that he loves the comps, he likes to go and use them. And using those comps, the house itself comes out at $262,000. If you talk about the value of the pole barns and what it cost in terms of your own sweat equity, I look at it from an economic point of view. What would happen? What would it cost if a contractor were to come in and put it up? The value comes out higher than what I would expect it to be. I don't agree with it. Mr. Franklin asked me for the cost numbers. I gave him the cost numbers. It doesn't mean that I'm using the cost numbers here. It just simply means that I have to go and take a look at it in its entirety. And for the purpose of this hearing, I have to separate out the commercial enterprise from the house and deal strictly with the house. And that's what you're looking at there in terms of those comparables.
well,
He's not done.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
it is just one property. There's no separation between commercial and residential on this
Well,
property.
there isn't, here's one of the issues, just so you understand. If this was a strictly commercial building, okay, I couldn't hear it. It would not qualify to go to a Scott hearing
Yeah.
because it's less than 50, it doesn't have a particular high or low. For the purposes so far, we're having the hearing because there's a large portion of this is basically a residential and a pole line, okay? That's what they're addressing here, is saying is that you can challenge the house or the pole barn, but in their interpretation is the commercial part of it is not up for discussion. since you've applied that it is for use as commercial, that's what they're recommending, okay?
And how does that affect it?
It pretty much is like vacant land. It's not challengeable, okay? Now, or it can be challenged, but not in a Scott hearing, okay? So I either have to look at this and separate them off a little bit because, or I have to say,
So what would you do? Take the blue building and take it out of this assessment?
that's what, I'm just waiting to see what they want to say, but that's what their interpretation is.
Well, you'd have to dismiss, you'd have to, I would object to that, we'd either dismiss it, you either hear it or you don't hear it.
But he can't hear it.
Then I guess.
There's an opinion of counsel.
But are you done yet?
No, you wasn't.
Okay, go ahead.
Finished now? Okay, we're done, go ahead.
Okay, the manual says that there can be a certain percentage of commercial, input. You've seen the pictures of the house. He has a commercial input. He's showing you what the income is. If you want, he will show you that those documents.
I'm not worried about
Yeah.
what the income is.
And so he's doing an income valuation. That would establish one figure. I don't think it's relevant,
It's not
but that's what he's
relevant.
doing.
It's not relevant. His income, I mean, his income off of that is, it's his choice whether he charges $5 an hour for a dog or $50 an hour, and if he can get somebody to pay it.
I agree with you, but that's not what he says in his paperwork.
I'm just-
And by the way, just so you know, see this up here? That is a camera. We don't know if they're editing that or not,
It's not on.
It's not.
It's not on? How do I know that?
Do you see the red light on it?
It might not have a
Not
red
all
light.
cameras have red lights.
Does this have a red light?
All right.
So anyway, he used these as comps, and so if he's saying he's going to separate the commercial from that, are you going to go to each one of these comps and take the barns off of those too? You're going to take all the outbuildings off of these and recalculate this? To compare apples and apples, that's what you would need to do.
Okay. So you want them all, you want it all to be compared as one unit?
He just happens to have some dogs there.
He just he has two outbuildings, in your opinion.
It's like saying, if we did an income valuation
No,
on my house, it'd be $1.5
no,
million.
Mr. Franklin, my question is, you're saying he has two outbuildings, yes or no?
He does.
Okay, thank you. So,
Yeah.
if it's two outbuildings, it's two outbuildings, whether he puts a dog or his garage in
Right.
there, or his lawnmower in there,
Right.
it's an outbuilding.
And so the issue I have is we have all these reports that he's generated, but nothing to explain where the end result comes out. It just pops down a number. Where is the figure coming from? It's just, okay, we've got all this stuff, okay, 270. But there's no explanation.
Okay.
There's no explanation, and there's no tables for me to calculate this thing from, so we can help you do your job and compare apples and apples. But if he refuses, they give us that data. And as far as the minutes, I do not have a vote. The minutes are not there. And as far as unequal, he says that because they're at 100%, you can't go unequal. Well, if this guy is the same as his, and his is 139 and his is 270, isn't that the definition of unequal?
No, that's a definition of excessive.
No.
Yes.
Well, when you know what the property sold for, if his could sell for that, but his assessment is 139, it's excessive and unequal. But it's semantics. What you call that. But in any case, that guy is being assessed far less based on that number than this one. That's unequal. But whatever.
Yeah, and I guess that document there that I handed you, the properties around me, they all are single family, listed under the tax roll as single family, and they all have businesses.
Yeah.
So I don't know why I ended up being I felt like I'm being targeted as on this property. I don't know why. I'm just trying to get along here.
There's 14,365 parcels in this town. There were well over 10,000.
Can we
changes in
proceed?
assessments
Don't
there.
let him finish.
So you're not being targeted.
No, I said I feel it.
Yeah, I understand,
Right?
and I'm just trying to
When I
make
look
sure
at,
that you're.
when I see it go up 50%, and and I'm like, why?
50% twice, 2 years in a row.
Yeah,
And it's not like he's singled out. He was selectively. He just, okay, we look at this one, okay, because there's no explanation for where these figures come from. Can I finish? There's no explanation for where the 270 was. Yes, we've got volumes of data, but he takes the volumes of the data, then he goes through his head and he goes 270. We would like to see it quantitatively explained. Just like we'd like to see the Board of Assessment Review quantitatively explain their decisions, because I know when you write your decisions, you write a proper decision. That's what I'm asking them to do, because otherwise it's selective. It makes people wonder if there's fixes on. If you're not accountable and transparent, there's appearances of impropriety when you do that. We want to see how you came up with that figure, not just volumes of data to confuse us. Okay, and again, you're gonna have to take off all the other barns and houses, and if you're gonna separate it, but it's just a house with a barn, and they live there and they have a few dogs,
Okay.
So,
Anything else you want to add?
and residential comps. Yeah, I'd like to give you this comp page, so it's got my notes on it.
So basic, that's the sheet that's the same one you've given me, I think, and you're challenging, okay.
I just like to get in the future, I would like to get all the data so that we can, and I would like to have Pat recognize me as the legal authorized. Pat said, Mike, you're not an attorney, so he refused to talk to me.
Well-
And he made a deal with my client and made my client breach his contract with me because I have the exclusive right. And it says right on page 4 of the RPT 738, I am the legal representative, and he fails
You are representing Mr. Flynn in this particular case.
in this particular case, but it was another case.
But let me just address that if I could, please. When I met with the other property owner, it was not a 7:30 hearing. It was a meeting that the property owner had specifically requested. He requested it, not me. And so I obliged him, I set up the meeting with him. Then you came along with an email saying that you're now his legal representative. I set up a meeting with him.
Not now, I already was.
I set up a meeting with him, not with you. And I gave you my reasons for not meeting with you. But it had nothing to do with 7:30. It did not come into play.
That's
That was a
true.
meeting between the assessor and a property owner, period.
Mm-hmm.
So whether he chose to bring you into the meeting or not, that was his decision, not mine.
Huh? But you're refusing to meet with me, and I'm the guy's
I
legal
have that
representative.
right to refuse to meet with
Well,
you.
we'll check with your supervisor if that's the case in the future.
Yeah, that's fine, but
Okay,
Let me just check my notes one more time.
please, your final statement.
I think we're done.
I just want to be sure, you have no other comps that you want to give me other than challenging his? Because that's all I've got from you.
I'm
so
trying to
far.
compare apples and apples.
Okay, I'm just trying to say you have nothing
Yeah,
that you've given me.
and if you,
It's
for me
your
to
better-
print out those comps in Zillow so you could see all the pictures would be, but you could just look at them on Zillow real quick and it'll be perfectly obvious to you.
I just want to make it
Yeah,
formal. Since you're recording this, I want to.
They're perfectly, in order to have, I could provide 5 more and it would just make it ridiculous. So we'll let you use what it is that he has.
Okay.
Because they meet our position, it's fine. So, yeah, so I would like to have Pat cooperate with me in the future. I would like to get my FOIL data, properly. And Pat, if we can compare apples and apples, this could be much simpler. We don't have to be like this.
Mr. Flynn, anything you want to add?
Yeah, basically, you've seen the data. I can't sell this property for 270 flat out. I guess I brought a small business in there. Basically, it's a community business. I got the approval from the town. There's nothing to hide here. It's not a large income. And basically, if this keeps happening, I'm gonna have to sell the property because I can't afford the taxes.
To sell it for
I'm 60,
270.
I'm on the verge of retirement, and this was gonna be a small income for us, besides Social Security and maybe some pension stuff, which obviously that's not happening anymore. But, the fact that the condition of the house needs repair, serious repair, electricians, plumbers, roofers, so on. in order for me to make it, a high value property, there's gonna be some value that I have to put into the property.
Well, okay, I'm gonna ask you a question,
Yeah.
just to be. So let's just say we turned around and I said that it was $2,000 to repair that electrical line on the outside of the house. And it was $10,000 to give you a new roof. And, so we took $15,000 off the value of your property. You would not object is once you put the roof and the electrical in, that they reassessed you back for $15,000?
No, right now, I'm actually,
I'm just saying, Joe, you want a deduction, but if you fix it, are you gonna allow them to recharge you?
if I have the money to do it, sure. I mean, what are you gonna say? I guess you could say, go back and look that the things have been changed, but my point is, not only is the house in repair, but for me to actually sell it, right? It's not gonna sell for $270 regardless if those things are done. The value of that property is not set up for $270. And if I have to, I have to move, because I'm not gonna be able to afford the taxes. Because that's taking my taxes up 50% basically.
Okay.
And that's where I gave you the other properties where they're, basically, they are running businesses out of them. They are still single families. So I don't know why I feel like I've been, targeted because I went to the town and actually got a permit. These people probably don't have business permits on their property. I don't know that. It's nothing I don't even know if I can find that out. But the bottom line is, the property won't sell for $270. $180, probably. Maybe $200, I don't know. I know it's not $270. The building, the garage has probably been there 90 years. It's an old brick building. And I just know that just looking at what's been sold around me, that's not at that condition. Like I said, there's nothing I can do about that foundation at this time. The basement is a dirt floor with natural seepage through that cobblestone. People don't wanna move into a house that's got running water through the spring.
Yeah, there's mold in there.
There's
It's
mold on it.
unsaleable, it's an unsaleable condition right now. But the comps that Pat used are of older houses, with an outbuilding. So some of those houses are very similar, 1870, some of them go to 1929 or whatever. But he chose specifically kind of old style house with an outbuilding. And if you look at all of those comps, if you look at the pictures, you'll see some of them are beautiful. Actually, the realtors did a pretty good job. Really nice photography. They're completely turnkey and extremely nice. This is far from it. He's gonna have to put a ton of money into it to make it saleable.
Yeah.
And he's got a pole barn, but you can put up a pole barn in a weekend or two.
Those guys put that barn up in 2 days.
Does that make it worth less?
Well, it costs
So you would pay more-
$17,000.
So you would pay more if it took 6 days?
I'm just saying how quick they think these things can
Well,
go
I'm
up.
just saying, you're.
It's not the Taj Mahal. It's a pole barn.
Yeah.
It looks big.
It'll
but it's a
hold 8
pole barn.
cars.
It'll hold a bunch of cars, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's got a roof on it and it's got some sides and it doesn't cost much. You've got the materials for what it costs them to build it.
Fine. All right, let me go, anything else you want to add, because we're well past an hour.
I think we're done.
Okay, I will, review all of this, and we'll get back to you, you'll get something.
Okay.
The other one you already know, so you're all set with that.
All right, I'm gonna stop this right now. Nothing will
Yeah,
be
shut
edited.
that down, yeah.